Hello and welcome back to another part of Design Your Own Level tutorial. In this video, which is going to be fairly long, just giving you a fair warning beforehand, we are going to export our UVs that we created here and the texture itself, and we're going to texture it inside of GIMP. Now, just a quick note, I did actually move the UVs up a little bit because they were overlapping over here and this side was overlapping the side over here. So you can actually see that it created paint on the opposite side when I was busy painting it. Apart from that, this is still the same texture or the same UV map that we created before. So I'm just going to click Save As. I'm going to save it, Chair Top Diffuse, click Save. Now, once again, warning, Blender does not save your images separately if you click File and Save here at the top. If you have started painting on something like this and you just click File, Save here at the top, you are going to lose that work. So fair warning, always remember to save your images separately. Alright, so now I'm just going to quickly jump over to my Google tab and I'm just going to look over here. Alright, so basically, I was looking for a few things in a texture itself. Now, the number one thing that I found is that on textures.com, they do actually have texture substances, which you can download, the albedo, normal map, roughness, height map, and everything like that if you really want to, which can make it a little bit easier for you. But now the problem is that these are fairly pricey when it comes to having a free account. And they are not very large, 512 by 512. So if I want to download all of these, I'm going to use a total of 10 credits, which is almost essentially my entire texture allowance on textures.com, unless you have a premium package. So I'm just going to go with these ones. I scoured through them a little bit. So this one I just want to use as reference to actually see what the stitching would look like, because if you recall on our video, well, our reference video, you'll see that there is stitching on the chair like so. So we want to kind of mimic that stitching, but we're not going to get something perfect like that. And this texture isn't seamless. I'm trying to go for seamless textures. So I was figuring maybe using something along these cardboard lines over here, because they're seamless over here, so they should actually work fairly nice. So what I'm going to do now is you want to download this one. I will put the links in the description below, and you're going to download the cardboard one as well. So check both links in the description below if you want to follow along with these exact textures. I'm going to jump over to GIMP and you'll see that I've already opened them over here. Then I'm just going to click File, Open, and I'm going to open my diffuse texture for my chair over here. But now we essentially just want to work on this area over here, these black areas over here. So I'm going to select the Fuzzy Select tool. We're going to click on one of these, hold Shift, and then click again. And then I'm going to hold Control C to copy. And then I'm going to make a new image. Oh, sorry, I'm just going to delete that one. New layer. And we'll call this just chair seat. It's already set up there for us. And I'm going to hit Control V. Actually, I could have just hit Control V. So I'm just going to merge this down. Just ignore that I did that separately. And now you'll see that we only have the seat area selected for us. Now we need to set up our texture itself here. Now I am not too happy with the size of a texture. If you're going to overlap this on this part, it's going to look horrible. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to go onto filters. I'm going to click on map and tile, and first thing that you want to do is you want to scale the image. So first we're going to do image, scale image, and we're going to change this to 128 by 128. Now you're going to have a teeny tiny texture that looks terrible on its own, but now we're going to go to filters again, map and tile. And I'm going to change this to 1024 by 1024. And that's starting to look pretty good. And I'm just going to do it one more time. Map tile 2048 by 2048. The reason why I'm doing that is so that it matches up with the size of our original texture. Because our original texture, if you can recall, in Blender, we created the image the size 2048 by 2048. And then essentially that is our base texture done the way that we want it. But let's just close out this one because that is our tile one. And that is also one of our starting point tiles, so we're only going to use this large one. Then I'm going to hit Control A to select all, hit Control C to copy, and then I'm going to go over here where it says chair seat, again the fuzzy select tool. Well, actually we first want to select, we want to make a new layer. Sorry about that. We want to make a new layer. We'll call this the chair seat, and it's going to be another one. We're going to hit Control V to paste the entire. Okay, that didn't quite paste the way that I wanted it to. So let's just. I keep duplicating instead of deleting. Sorry about that. Let's try again. Paste. We'll make it to a new layer. There we go. So that's a little bit better. Then we're going to go back to these. I'm going to use the fuzzy select tool, select all of them here. Then you're going to go into the select mode. You click invert, go back to this texture over here, and then you just click delete. And then you'll see that that covers the same UV space as that area over there. But now we kind of need to give it a better color because that's we want it to be like a blackish leather color. So I'm just going to go to the colors, desaturate. Just make sure, sorry, we still have the inverse selected. Even though it looks like we have that selected, we actually have the outer area selected. So hit Control A to select everything. And then we're going to go to desaturate again. And there we are. But now that is too light. And we want something fairly dark. Now bear in mind that we still have our black area over here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to move this to the layer above. And then there's two options that you can do. You can either set this to an overlay. And then you'll see, and we can just duplicate it to darken the texture as much as what we want. Or you can just, on normal, start to decrease the influence. But that might not work as well, but let's see. Let's go for about 75. Let's see if that looks okay. I think that looks okay. And if you're happy with it, then you can just go right click, new from visible, and that if you ignore the other ones, then this will be the texture that you're working from. So I'm not too happy with it. I just actually want to see if we can get a better, just a better looking texture if I just like duplicate the overlays until I get to like a certain point. Okay, so now you have to compare these two. This one actually just made everything very gray, while this one actually changed the color in general in conjunction with everything. So I think we're going to go with using overlays a couple of times to get to this value. I'm going to then right click and say new from visible. And then all of these that we duplicated, we can just delete them. You can actually go as far as deleting this, but I actually want to keep this. I'm just going to set that back to normal. And this one, do I want to keep it? Just want to see one thing. Alright, I think I'm going to keep it because we might need it if we want to make a normal map from it. Alright. So then essentially we have our base texture that we are going to use. It is completely done. Now what we want to do is we want to add in some grooves. So we're going to go back to this one. And we're not going to do the same thing as we did before, but what I want to do with this is I'm just going to like copy one of these. I'm going to select one of these and fill in all the way, hit Control C, and then I'm going to go over to my textures over here, then hit Control V. I'm going to paste it as a new layer. And then we can just like move it around. It almost goes all the way across, and that would have been so much easier for us to, well actually no, because we don't want the back of the chair to have this groove. So let's actually see which part is the back of the chair. Just go back to your model, and I'm just going to go into edit mode. There we go. I'm just going to select the front, and you'll see that the right side is actually the front of our model. So we're going to go over here. Alright, but because this texture is fairly seamless, we don't really need to worry, but we already have seams. We're already going to have some seams in it. So what I'm just going to do is I'm just going to lop off this side over here. I'm just going to delete it. And then we're going to go through a fairly similar process. I'm going to select this part. I'm going to desaturate it. Sorry, you need to select everything first. There we go. And do the same thing. Desaturate it. Lightness. And I'm going to try and change this to an overlay to see if that looks. Alright, that actually looks pretty good. We might want it a little bit stronger, so we can duplicate it. And let's just see what it looks like if we have something else selected. Alright, so that looks pretty good. The blending is a little bit off, but we are going to fix that just now. So what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to take this as is, and I'm going to, let's just see here, make a new layer from visible. And then I'm going to go back to deleting these. And we're going to swap this back to an overlay. There we go. Alright, so that actually gives us the grooves that we want. So now what we can do is we can just actually select it and copy it. Set it to a new layer, and then start moving it to the positions that we want. So it all really depends on how many we want in. I actually think that, let's just go back. I didn't export my UV maps, so that might, you can do that. There's an option to export your UV layout. If you do that, then you'll actually see all of these lines here, which might make it a little bit easier for you to work, but I'm just going to like judge by eye here at the current moment. So going to just keep on pasting new layers. I think here at the bottom we're going to keep to new layer. Alright, so now we actually want to start moving them a little bit closer to one another because we're at the bottom piece. To new layer, there we go. And then the closer we get to the top, we actually just want to move them further apart. So we already have our one there, and then we do something like this. To new layer. To new layer. And the reason why I'm actually I have so many layers currently set up is that I want to be able to still move these like individually. fairly easily. And then once I have like all the setups done properly, we can change everything to the overlay states and just see what that looks like. So again, a very long and annoying process, but in all honesty, quite necessary if you want to get something that looks good. Alright, and lastly, that one was overlay. Okay, so now you see that it's actually coming together quite nicely. It might be this top piece doesn't look all that great, but it's got these grooves in it, and I actually kind of like it. There are some parts where they do, like, it almost looks like artifacts, but that actually doesn't look too bad. So if you're happy with the way that that looks, essentially, then what we can do is we can just start to merge these together. So you just right click and you can actually hit the W key each time just to merge them all down, and then change that to the overlay. Right, and I think we might have lost the top one, but I didn't like that one anyway. So, and now we can just see what all of these look like separately. And if you want, now we're going to start with a little bit of a cleanup on them. What we can do is we can use the smudge tool and just increase the brush size. Where's the brush size? Not the right size. There we go. And we can just like try and smudge on the areas that it makes those unwanted lines that we don't want to see. So the areas where it makes our little grooves that we definitely want, we ignore, and this area here, we just like smudge it over. So if you go over and you look at it, you'll see that's what the smudging is starting to look like. So let's just see. And this is going to be another back and forth process of just seeing where you drew your lines and where you actually want the details to. Oh, not that one, this one. There you go. There's definitely one over there I don't like. Some strange one over here. Alright, but now I'm fairly happy with the way that the chair came out over here. The back end we're not going to do. We can do it with the bottom piece, so we actually just need to go in over here and actually see which part is there. Alright, so we swapped them. That's slightly annoying. But now also notice that, let's just see, that this is also rotated to the right. So I'm going to grab this one as is here. I'm going to select all of it. I'm going to copy it and paste it and set it to a new layer. I'll grab that layer and then just move it away. And then I want to select the layer and I'm going to transform and rotate it by 90 degrees. Then I'm going to bring back up my image here. And now it's going to depend on how many cushions you want on this particular chair. We're not going to worry about doing anything at the bottom, so I'm just going to grab these. I'm going to delete them, and then I'm going to go and set this to an overlay. So that looks pretty good. Let's just try and move that up a bit. I think we need to go for something along the lines of that. Alright, there we go. So now what we can do is I'm going to go onto this one. I'm going to use the fuzzy select tool. I'm going to select that area over there. I'm going to go back to our rotated pasted level. Let's just see here. That one that we have over here. And I'm going to do an inverse selection. And I'm going to hit delete. So it literally just influences that area over there. And now if we look at it, Right, we have our seat with all its number of grooves. Hopefully it will come out similar to that. I'm not 100% sure if it will, but it looks good enough for what we're trying to do here. If you want to, you can still use the smudge tool to clean up a little bit. It does require a lot more work, but for tidying up, we're not really too concerned about that at the moment. So I'm pretty happy with the way that this came out, and I think I'm just going to use it as is. The only other thing might be because our chair is kind of set up in a strange way, and we made the seams on the sides here. You can see we made our seams on the side over here, is that the cushion might come over and then it's just probably going to completely stop over there and you're not going to see it all that well. Well, we can fix that inside of Blender itself, and I'm not going to be too concerned about that for this particular model. We'll cover that when we finish this the entire tutorial. I will get back on how to clean things up and just make them look nicer. So this particular piece is almost done. What I'm going to do now is I just need to bake the normal maps for it and create like the roughness and everything for it. So if you're happy with the way that this one looks, you can right click and make a new from visible. There we go. And I'm going to call this our albedo. Now, the reason why I'm already happy with this being the albedo texture is because with it being a lever is just mainly going to rely on the roughness information and the normal map, where this doesn't have any shadow information whatsoever except for those dents that we made in there now, but that's part of the texture. We do not need to create, we do not need to change the levels at all. So I'm just going to leave it as is. Then what I'm going to do, and this might seem like a very strange process, let's first merge this one. I'm just going to show you this one and that one. We're going to merge them together. So I'm just going to hit merge down. Just make sure we switch it back to overlay. Did it actually merge properly? It actually doesn't seem like it did. Let's select everything and let's do that again, and we right click and merge down. Alright, so I think I'm going to ignore that, because every time that I try and merge down, it this texture disappears. Maybe if we move this one up and then merge this one down, no, then the other part disappears. So I'm going to ignore that, and I'm just going to bake the normal maps for it separately. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to duplicate this layer and then move it up, and I will call this normal, let's call it the seat, and we're going to go over to your filters, map, normal map. Now remember, the normal map tool is not part of GIMP itself. You would have to download it. I'll put the link in the description below. It does crash if I use the 3D view, so I cannot always see what it looks like. Alright, let's just disable everything else and see what that looks like. Alright, the one thing I'm not too happy, it's adding too much detail on there, so let's just undo that. I'm going to go back to the map, normal map. See if I make this bigger. Okay, I can't make that preview bigger. Yeah, okay. So let us change the minimum Z and change the scale to 2 and click OK. Alright, it might seem like we're not going to win with this one at the moment. So I'm just going to use that as is, and I'm going to carry on with making the normal maps for the others. So I'm going to select this one. I'm going to duplicate it. And then do the same thing. We're going to do filters, map, normal map. Then just hide this one. All right. And then we want to actually get a normal map value from not our albedo, but this one over here separately. So then I'm going to duplicate this, call this normal seat full, and then once again filters, map, normal map, and just click OK. Alright, so now we have all of these, and actually if we start to blend them together, we'll see what they look like. And all those extra detail that was coming through, you don't really see that. It looks okay. If you want to use the smudge tool to get out some of these lines, you're more than welcome to, but I think for our base normal map that's okay. So I'm just going to right click and say new from visible and call this our normal map seat final. There we go. And then I'm just going to delete these because I'm probably not going to use them again. There we go. So in order not to confuse myself too much with using those. And then that is pretty much done on that front. Now what we need to do is we need to get a roughness map. So we're going to use our original. Actually, we're going to use our albedo. There we go. We're going to duplicate our albedo, and then using the reference chart, we need to find something that is very close to the lever that we want. Now I'm looking something along the lines. This actually seems like it's quite reflective. So that, I think, if I judge that value, I'm looking at something about roughly about there. I would actually judge the lever to be closer to over there, but I'm going to use this value because I want to do something fairly similar. And I'm going to click new file, click OK, and I'm going to fill it with the color that we selected. I'm going to go to my histogram. So again, if you don't have your histogram, it should be up here under Windows, and then I think it's dockable dialogues. You should be able to find it here. And the value there is 163. So we need to take this value and drive it to 163 to get our roughness. So let's do that. So I'm going to do levels. Actually, I think it's already desaturated. We don't need to worry about that. Okay, so I want to drive the levels on this particular one to roughly about 163. So that's going to be very bright. Alright, so there we have our median value, so I'm going to change that. Alright, so dark levels, don't want that. Alright, so I got to a value about roughly 161. That looks okay to me. I'm going to use that, and I'm just going to click OK. And call this our roughness map. Now there is unfortunately no metallic map for this. We're just going to set a value inside of Unreal Engine 4. So I'm fairly happy with the way that this looks. Okay, so now there's only one other thing that we actually still need to do. And this is going to be another long process, because now it means that we have to repeat the process, but with these metal pieces over here. But because they are metal, if you can recall the way that we did the pipe, it's going to be fairly similar to that. We're just going to get like a metal value. I'm happy with the color. We can always set up our masking so that we can change the color itself. So I am going to go with this. And well, let's put an end to this part of the video. It's a, as I warned before, this is a fairly long part of the tutorial. So if you like it, you can leave a like. If you dislike it, you can leave a dislike. Leave a comment, please subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.